U.S. government just classified silver as a strategic asset. Here's what it means for you. What if I told you that a metal, prized for millennia as currency and jewelry, has suddenly been thrust into the epicenter of a new global economic and technological Cold War? This isn't a tale of ancient empires, but a breaking development unfolding right now. The United States has officially designated silver, along with its industrial cousins copper and platinum, as critical minerals. This seemingly bureaucratic reclassification is, in fact, a seismic shift in resource strategy, a clear signal that the gears of global power are grinding in a new direction. This is far more than a simple list update. It is a declaration of economic sovereignty and a recognition that the future will be built with these very metals. For decades, the global economy has operated on a fragile assumption of uninterrupted supply chains. We built a complex, interconnected system where raw materials were sourced from the most cost-effective locations, processed elsewhere, and assembled into final products in yet another corner of the globe. This intricate dance of logistics delivered unprecedented efficiency and consumer choice. However, this hyperglobalization created a critical vulnerability, a dangerous dependence on a handful of nations for the essential building blocks of modern civilization. The United States, along with many Western nations, finds itself precariously reliant on imports for materials vital to everything from national defense to the green energy transition. This dependency is no longer a theoretical risk. It's a clear and present danger to economic stability and national security. The catalyst for this monumental policy change is the official 2025 update to the U.S. Geological Survey's USGS Critical Minerals List. For the first time, silver, copper, and platinum have been added, joining a group of 60 materials deemed indispensable to America's economic and national security. This isn't a decision made in a vacuum. The USGS employed a sophisticated new economic model, running over 1,200 scenarios across 402 industries to quantify the potential damage from supply chain disruptions. The inclusion of these metals is a direct response to escalating geopolitical tensions and the strategic realization that control over these resources equates to control over the future of technology, energy, and defense. This designation represents an irreversible tipping point. The era of viewing silver primarily through the lens of a precious metal or an inflation hedge is over. It is now officially recognized as a strategic industrial asset. This policy shift unlocks a cascade of powerful incentives and strategic actions, including federal funding for domestic mining projects, streamlined permitting processes, and significant tax incentives. The government is no longer a passive observer. It is an active participant, signaling to the market that securing domestic supply chains for metals like silver and copper is a national priority, effectively creating a policy-driven floor for their strategic value. The immediate impact of this designation will be a fundamental reshaping of the investment landscape for mining and resource recovery. We can anticipate a surge in capital flowing towards domestic exploration and production. Companies with operations in the U.S. or allied nations will suddenly find themselves at a significant advantage, benefiting from a supportive regulatory environment and direct government backing. This will likely lead to a re-rating of their equities, as the market prices in reduced political risk and enhanced profitability. We are about to witness the dawn of a mining renaissance in North America, driven not just by market demand, but by a powerful national security imperative. Furthermore, the addition of silver and copper to the critical minerals list exposes them to a new and potent geopolitical tool, Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act. This gives the administration the authority to impose tariffs on imports deemed a threat to national security. While precious metals have traditionally been exempt from such levies, their new status as critical industrial inputs changes the calculus entirely. This creates a powerful incentive for manufacturers to source these metals domestically or from trusted allies, further tightening the market and potentially leading to a premium for North American-produced silver and copper. The threat of tariffs alone will begin to realign global supply chains. The long-term takeaway from this historic decision is that we are entering a new age of strategic resource nationalism. The laissez-faire approach to global supply chains is being replaced by a more interventionist, security-focused strategy. For investors, this means that geopolitical risk analysis is no longer an abstract concept, but a critical driver of asset valuation. Understanding the strategic importance of commodities like silver, copper, and platinum is now essential. Their demand is no longer solely a function of economic cycles, but is increasingly underwritten by government policy and the unstoppable momentum of the global energy transition and technological arms race. Let's delve deeper into the specific drivers for each of these newly designated metals, starting with silver. For centuries, silver's primary role was monetary. It was the backbone of currencies, a store of wealth trusted across civilizations. While that monetary aspect has never fully disappeared, it has been overshadowed by a technological revolution that silver is quietly powering. With over 10,000 documented industrial uses, silver is the most versatile metallic element on the planet. Its unmatched electrical and thermal conductivity makes it irreplaceable in a vast array of modern applications. The green energy transition is perhaps the most significant demand driver for silver. Photovoltaic cells, the heart of solar panels, rely on silver paste to conduct electricity. As the world races to expand solar capacity to meet climate goals, the demand for silver is projected to skyrocket. Some forecasts suggest that the solar industry alone could consume a substantial portion of the world's annual silver supply within the next decade. This isn't a cyclical demand. It's a structural, long-term trend backed by global government mandates and hundreds of billions of dollars in investment. The electrification of transportation is another voracious consumer of silver. An electric vehicle uses nearly double the amount of silver as a traditional internal combustion engine vehicle. It's essential for battery packs, electrical control units, and the rapidly expanding charging infrastructure. As EV adoption accelerates globally, this demand vector will continue to grow exponentially, putting further strain on a supply that is already struggling to keep pace. The very fabric of our future clean energy and transportation systems is being woven with silver. Beyond green technology, silver is at the heart of our digital world. The rise of artificial intelligence and the insatiable demand for data processing power are creating another massive demand stream. AI servers require significantly more silver than traditional data centers due to the need for high-performance components. From 5G networks to the Internet of Things, every smart device, every sensor, every high-speed data connection relies on silver's unique properties to function efficiently and reliably. This technological dependency ensures that silver's industrial demand is deeply embedded in the most powerful growth trends of the 21st century. Now let's turn our attention to copper, the workhorse of the global economy. Often considered a bellwether for economic health, copper's inclusion on the critical minerals list signals a recognition of its indispensable role in the modern world. It is the backbone of electrification. Power grids, data centers, electric vehicles, and renewable energy systems all depend on massive quantities of copper for wiring and components. The global push to decarbonize is, in essence, a push to electrify everything, and that simply cannot happen without a secure and stable supply of copper. The supply side of the copper equation is where the story gets truly compelling. It takes, on average, over a decade to bring a new copper mine from discovery to production. Years of underinvestment in exploration and development, coupled with declining ore grades at existing mines, have created a looming supply gap. The world is simply not producing enough copper to meet the projected demand from the energy transition. This structural deficit is the core reason for its designation as a critical mineral. The risk of a supply squeeze is no longer a distant threat, it is an impending reality. The geopolitical dimensions of the copper market cannot be overstated. A significant portion of the world's copper production and processing is concentrated in a few key regions, creating potential choke points in the supply chain. By adding copper to the critical minerals list, The United States is signaling its intent to de-risk its supply by encouraging domestic production and forging stronger alliances with resource-rich partners in the Western Hemisphere. This is a strategic move to build a more resilient and secure industrial base, insulated from the geopolitical whims of adversaries. Platinum, the third metal added to the list, brings its own unique set of strategic considerations. While best known for its use in catalytic converters in traditional vehicles, platinum is a key player in the emerging hydrogen economy. It is an essential catalyst in electrolyzers, which produce green hydrogen, and in fuel cells, which convert that hydrogen back into electricity. As the world explores hydrogen as a clean energy carrier, the demand for platinum is poised for significant growth. Like other platinum group metals, platinum's supply is highly concentrated geographically, creating significant supply chain vulnerabilities. Its inclusion on the critical minerals list reflects a forward-looking strategy to secure the materials needed for the next generation of clean energy technologies. The U.S. is positioning itself to be a leader in the hydrogen economy, and that requires a secure supply of the critical catalysts that make it all possible. This is about anticipating future needs and building the supply chain resilience to meet them. The policy mechanisms that are now unlocked by this critical minerals designation are transformative. The promise of streamlined permitting is perhaps the most significant for the mining industry. In the past, the convoluted and often lengthy permitting process in the United States has been a major impediment to developing domestic resources. By prioritizing projects that produce critical minerals, the government can significantly shorten the timeline from exploration to production, unleashing America's vast mineral wealth. This single policy change has the potential to fundamentally alter the global mining landscape. Direct financial support through federal funding, loan guarantees, and tax incentives will act as a powerful accelerant. These measures de-risk private investment and make domestic projects more economically viable, even in a volatile commodity price environment. The government is essentially putting its thumb on the scale, creating a favorable investment climate for the domestic production of these vital materials. This public-private partnership is a cornerstone of the new American resource strategy. The concept of government stockpiling also comes into play. The designation as a critical mineral opens the door for the creation of strategic reserves of silver, copper, and platinum. This would create a new source of demand, independent of industrial or investment cycles, and provide a buffer against potential supply shocks. The very existence of a strategic stockpile underscores the government's commitment to supply chain security and sends a powerful message to the market about the long-term value of these metals. The future price trajectory for these metals is now supported by a powerful confluence of factors. On the demand side, we have the unstoppable secular trends of the green energy transition, global electrification, and the data-driven AI revolution. On the supply side, we have years of underinvestment, declining ore grades, and the long lead times required to bring new production online. And now, layered on top of these powerful market fundamentals, we have a strategic policy overlay from the world's largest economy that is designed to incentivize domestic production and secure supply chains. It would be naive to expect a straight-line price appreciation. Commodity markets are inherently volatile. However, the designation as critical minerals creates a structural tailwind and a potential price floor that did not exist before. It fundamentally alters the risk-reward calculation for investors and producers. The downside risk is now cushioned by a clear government mandate, while the upside potential remains enormous, driven by the relentless growth in demand. What does this mean for the average investor? It means that an allocation to these strategic metals and the companies that produce them is no longer just a speculative play on inflation or a hedge against market turmoil. It is a strategic investment in the foundational building blocks of the 21st century economy. The narrative has shifted from precious to indispensable. The investment thesis is no longer just about wealth preservation. It's about positioning for the immense growth that will be fueled by these critical materials. Looking ahead, we can predict an intensification of the global competition for these resources. As the United States moves to secure its own supply chains, other major economic blocs, such as the European Union and Japan, will undoubtedly follow suit. This will create a multipolar world of resource competition, where access to critical minerals becomes a key determinant of economic strength and geopolitical influence. We are at the beginning of a great power competition played out not on battlefields, but in mines, refineries, and boardrooms. This will also spur a new wave of innovation in materials science and recycling. The prospect of sustained high prices and potential supply constraints will drive research into alternatives and more efficient recycling technologies. While materials like graphene are often touted as potential long-term replacements for silver and copper, their widespread commercial application is still a long way off. In the medium term, the focus will be on building a more robust circular economy for these metals, recovering them from e-waste and other end-of-life products. The relationship between the United States and China in this new era of resource competition will be complex and fraught with tension. China currently dominates the processing and refining of many critical minerals, including rare earth elements. The U.S. strategy is clearly aimed at reducing this dependency by onshoring and friendshoring its supply chains. This will likely lead to a period of strategic decoupling, where two parallel supply chain ecosystems emerge, one centered around China and the other around the United States and its allies. We are witnessing a historic realignment of global economic and industrial policy. The decision to add silver, copper, and platinum to the U.S. critical minerals list is not an isolated event, but a key move in a much larger geopolitical chess game. It is a recognition that in the 21st century, true national security is built upon a foundation of secure, resilient, and reliable supply chains for the materials that power our world. The aftershocks of this decision will be felt across markets and industries for years to come. This shift also presents a profound opportunity for countries in the Americas. Nations like Canada, Mexico, Peru, and Chile, which are rich in these critical minerals, are now positioned to become key strategic partners for the United States. We can expect a strengthening of economic and political ties throughout the Western Hemisphere as a new, more localized supply chain ecosystem is built. This could usher in a new era of shared prosperity and economic integration, all centered around the secure production of these vital resources. The human element of this story is also crucial. The renewed focus on domestic mining will create jobs and revitalize communities. However, it must be done responsibly. Modern mining operations will need to adhere to the highest environmental, social, and governance (ESG) standards to gain the social license to operate. The challenge will be to balance the urgent need for these materials with the imperative to protect our environment and respect the rights of local communities. This is a complex but essential part of the equation. For investors, the path forward requires a nuanced understanding of these intersecting themes. It's no longer enough to simply look at supply and demand charts. One must now consider the impact of government policy, geopolitical tensions, and the long-term structural shifts in our economy. The companies that will succeed in this new environment will be those that are not only efficient operators, but also adept at navigating the complex political and social landscape of modern resource extraction. In conclusion, the official designation of silver, copper, and platinum as critical minerals is a watershed moment. It marks the end of an era of complacency and the beginning of a new era of strategic foresight. It is a clear and unambiguous signal that the United States is serious about securing its economic future and its national security. The invisible threads of silver, copper, and platinum run through every aspect of our modern lives, and by recognizing their critical importance, we are taking the first step towards building a more resilient, prosperous, and secure future. The game has changed, and these three metals are now at the center of the board. The implications are profound and will continue to unfold. This policy shift will catalyze investment, reshape trade relationships, and accelerate technological innovation. It underscores a fundamental truth of our time. The future will not be built on code and algorithms alone. It will be built on a foundation of tangible physical materials, and those who control these critical minerals will hold a decisive advantage in the decades to come. The silent, conductive, and catalytic power of these metals has just been given a voice at the highest levels of power. As we move forward, it will be imperative to monitor the implementation of these new policies. Will the promise of streamlined permitting become a reality? How quickly will new domestic production come online? How will other nations respond to this strategic move by the United States? These are the questions that will shape the narrative of the critical minerals story in the years ahead. But one thing is certain. Silver, copper, and platinum have been elevated from simple commodities to pillars of national strategy, and the world will never look at them in the same way again.